Today I went to a screening of Beats Per Minute, or 80 battements par minute. That was a really bad pronunciation of the French title. It's 120 beats per minute is the full English translation of the French title. 120 beats per minute is the normal beating of an average heart. In the film, it's written and directed by Rob Campillo with Philippe Mangio, and the two of them were members of ACT UP Paris in the 90s when the film is based, and it's sort of it's a cat's tail. It's sort of a docudrama of what it was like to be an ACT UP then and to be an AIDS activist in Paris in this time. It's 2 hours and 20 minutes long, and I swear I didn't feel it. When it ended, I was like I could tell that it was wrapping up and then it was about to end, but I didn't want it to end. And then I didn't realize how long the movie was, and then I looked it up and I was like, that did not feel like 2 hours and 20 minutes. It's so engrossing from start to finish. And the thing that I think is the strongest about it is that, and you wouldn't really get this if you watch the trailers, because the trailers really focus on the main sort of relationship in the middle of the film. And while that is the main relationship, I wouldn't even say they get the bulk of the screen time. The bulk of the screen time is actually meetings of ACT UP that met every Tuesday at 7, and you go to many of them over the course of about a year and a half, and they're really exciting to see it, and it's so wonderful to see a film about activism that really shows the nitty gritty of activism. It's not just the marches, and it's not just the protests and things. It's discussing what the movement means, and it's writing literature, and it's passing out stickers to place on homophobic books, and it's bringing in pharmaceutical representatives, and it's reading about things so that you are educated on what you are being an activist about, and it just shows the work, and I feel like that is not often depicted, or not depicted well. And what I also liked was that it really showed the changing group dynamics and the way in which they all have to function as one, but there's always friction, because there's always going to be friction. I just thought it was a wonderful, unique, great film, and the lead stars are I'm gonna mess this name up, Nahuel Perez Biscayart and Arnaud Valois, and they have such great chemistry together. It's always fun to watch a romance where the people really feel like people who are in love. Like, having observed a lot of people who are in like long loving relationships, I felt like I saw what I see in real life reflected really well in this film. It also had a great sort of acts as a great history lesson for people of my generation who, when a lot of this was happening, I was a child, and I didn't know about ACT UP in America, let alone in Paris. And so getting to see my community's history and a global look at that history was really enlightening. It's just such a wonderful film. It opened in France in August, and it just opened about a month ago here in New York and Los Angeles. And this is its premiere here in Atlanta. So if you're in Atlanta, you can go see it at the Midtown Art Cinema. And it's just a great, passionate film. It made me want to do more activism than I already do, which is not nearly enough, but you can always do more. And seeing these people do the work and the progress that can come from that is really inspiring. And I feel like it's hard to do the work, but you have to. You really just have to. Aside from that, it's also about living with HIV and living with AIDS, and what that process is like and what that um, can mean in your life, and what just living with a debilitating illness, or an illness that will eventually become debilitating. And in this case, there's a character that starts out one way, and obviously things do not go well. And that arc was wonderful because he was such a strong uh, character who knew who he was, knew how he felt about things, and and as his body deteriorated, he still stood strong with what he believed and what he wanted. And I feel like I wish all of us could be that strong. Being strong like that is hard, and seeing it in a character makes you try to fortify yourself, I think, more, and and stick with your own beliefs and your own uh, sort of morals. I feel like there was something I watched recently this reminded me of, and I can't. Oh, on BBC America, I didn't do a video of this because it was a television, but BBC America did celebrated the 50th anniversary of the legalization of homosexuality, period, in England. It's only been not a crime to be a gay man in England for 50 years. Let that sink in. And they did a celebration of that by doing these really wonderful shorts. They were like 22 minutes each, something like that, called Queers. And it was showed about 100 years. I think it was 1917 through 2017. It showed 100 years of how homosexuality in Britain had changed, and showed all the. It was like a history lesson, but personalized, and it was beautiful. And aspects of this film reminded me of that film, in that a lot of the issues that not only our community but allies and those who would be allies if they knew better face is a lack of just transparency and education. And what they're fighting for in beats per minute is access to information, and better information about how it's spread and how to protect yourself, and just knowledge, and acknowledgement that it's the state's job to educate people, to keep um, them safe, and because it was a part of society that was deemed lesser, and that was deemed, wrong by certain people, they're often underserved by their own government. And I think you see that for real in England, and you still see that here, and you see that not just in the queer community, but in so many marginalized communities. And until you force that, until you force basically the community, I mean, force the government to treat us like everybody else, that doesn't happen. And that's bullshit in and of itself. And there's still so many communities that are treated as less than, and that's frustrating. But to see a film like this, and to see people working to get to zero, basically, to get to being treated like everyone else, is both really inspiring and really frustrating, because there's still so much work to be done, and yet so much work has been done, and there's just a lot. This movie made me cry. It's just beautiful. It's beautiful and sad and inspiring, and you should definitely check it out if you're here in Atlanta. And if it's playing anywhere near you, go see it, and then read a lot, and then just educate as many people as you can. That's education is such a powerful tool, and the more you can educate people, the better the world is going to be.